Welcome to Leadership from the Trenches with Mike Berry and Nicole Swan.
Welcome, everyone, to our next episode of, it's actually part two of Leadership from the Trenches. I'm Mike Berry, and I'm a technical trainer and business consultant, and my co-host is Nikki Swan. Nikki, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Nikki Swan. I'm principal consultant with Peridot Circle Consulting. We do leadership coaching and help people take themselves to the next level as leaders.
Great. And today we have James Pizzola, who this is part two of an interview with James Pizzola. We spent part one talking to him about, he wrote a book called Managerial Leadership in the Workplace. And let's see, there's a little in the that's kind of hard to see right there with this camera, but it says Managerial Leadership in the Workplace. And James wrote this book for his son. And so we thought it'd be fun to interview James. And part one, we talked about James' leadership experience and kind of his influences growing up that made him interested in this topic. And we thought for part two, we'd actually kind of go through the book with him and kind of go over the different topics and talk a little about each one of them. There's an excellent kind of table of contents here that goes through the different topics we're going to go through. And James wrote the book, and Nikki and I have both read the book. Nikki listened to it on tape.
Audible.
Yeah, Audible.
Yeah, Audible. It's on Audible.
So it's available on Audible. That's good to know. And anything, James, you want to add? You want to say hi to our audience for just a sec before we jump into the book and start going through the topics?
Yeah, first of all, Nikki, Mike, thanks for having me back on. I'm very excited to be back on the podcast.
Glad to
Also
have
very
you.
excited to talk about the book, as you mentioned, with you guys and the different concepts that I discuss in there. And also just excited to be back talking with you guys generally. You know, a lot of fun.
Great, very good. I want to tell you my initial impression of the book was this is a really nice book. It's a succinct list of very important concepts in leadership, and it's even though the book's written for kids, it's really an excellent book for professionals. You know, somebody told me a long time ago, if you want to learn about a topic, find a children's book on the topic. That's the quickest way to learn the long and short of what the topic is. And I'd recommend this book to anybody that's interested in improving their leadership abilities. And so with that, why don't we jump into the first topic, strategic vision. We don't have a lot of time on this podcast, so we're just going to kind of jump right in. Strategic vision. So all of us have some leadership experience. I'll just say that strategic vision is the leader's job to establish a vision for the team. If the team doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing, the leader has not done their job yet. And with that, James, you want to talk to us about strategic vision?
Yeah, so to preface that, I would say that I tried to write the book in a style in which, just like you said, where the concepts are easily understandable for even children, but writing it for an adult audience that may also have children, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But as far as the different items that you mentioned in the table of contents, I kind of look at it like baking a cake, right? You have to have all of the ingredients. You know, if you bake a cake and you have everything but the eggs, it's not going to come out right. Everything but the sugar, it's not going to come out right. And so these are the main skills that I saw in doing the research, that it felt like if a leader has all of these things, they can make a pretty good cake. So that's why I think they all kind of build on each other throughout the course of the book. And really good leaders display all of these different aspects that I talk about.
You mentioned SMART goals. Measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. Yep. And I'll tell you a funny story. I had a student in one of my classes that worked on Wall Street, and we went over this concept in class, and he said, wait a minute. He said, on Wall Street, they taught us that SMART stood for specific, measurable, aggressive, relevant, and timely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so
that tracks.
He kind of felt that he'd been cheated a little bit. It was kind of funny.
To get back, though, to what you're saying, Mike, about strategic vision, I think, like I said, all of the ingredients are important. I think strategic vision, and the reason I put it at the top is because I think that's probably one of the most important. traits that a leader can have, because in leading anybody, or even yourself, you have to know what you want to accomplish. You have to know the route and road that you're going to be going down. Otherwise, there's a quote that I love, and I'm probably going to butcher it, so I'm sorry. If you don't know where you're going to go, it doesn't matter how long you walk. So if you have a path in mind, if you have an end goal in mind, a vision in mind, if you will, you can start to put the other pieces together and also bring people along. But if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter how far you travel, because you're not going to get to your destination.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
And it's so important that we be able to communicate that vision in a way that team wants to follow you and understands it, and everybody's driving in the same direction. It really is foundational, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. There's a lot more in your book on this chapter. We'll move on to the next topic here. And people reading, there's sort of case study examples from the real world of these different topics, and James goes over different companies. Here he's talking about Walt Disney, how Walt Disney had a strategic vision that was very much better and different from the other theme parks that he visited before he decided to create his own. And of course, we know the rest of the story. Walt Disney, they became a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah, I think people have heard of him.
Yep. I heard something that Mickey Mouse now is in public domain. At least Steamboat Willie is. Steamboat Willie was like the original character that Mickey Mouse came from. But I guess Steamboat Willie is in public domain.
75 years,
Really?
I think, is the length of time before something hits the public domain.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Next, we have communication skills. And I like to tell people this is the most important skill in business, is communication. And so you got here, communication consists of actively listening without making assumptions, understanding different personality types within the workplace, and using appropriate body language during conversations. Boy. Any comments about that?
Yeah, I think Nikki kind of hit it on the head. Is once you have that vision that we were talking about, you have to be able to communicate it to the rest of the I don't want to call them followers, the rest of the team, I guess, the people that are looking to you to lead them. Because if you could have the best idea in the world, but if you're not able to articulate it to the rest of the team, it's pretty difficult to get that actually accomplished. And as I mentioned in there are a lot of different people in the world and a lot of different personality types. And I think you have to adjust how you communicate to each personality type, so that you can get your message across and convey it in a way that relates to that person. So you might not communicate the same way to this person as you will to this one, but being able to switch between those communication tactics and styles, I think, is very important.
John Maxwell talks about how you need to help people hear it, see it, and feel it, and that's how you give a really good communique to a group of people.
I like that. I'm going to remember that.
Yeah. I can remember a time in my past where I was a middle manager somewhere, and there was some problem that I warned the senior management about, and they didn't really react to it. And then the problem occurred, and it was a disaster. And I remember the president of the company saying, "You should have told us." And I said, "I did." Do you remember this meeting, this date and time? I said this. And he said, "Okay, I'll give you that." But he said, what you should have done is walked in here with a bucket of red paint, and you should have painted that wall over there red. and during work hours, and we would all walk up to you and say, "What are you doing?" And you'd say, "I'm warning you about a problem that's coming our direction, and I want to make sure you don't not hear me."
Yeah, that would burn it in their brain for sure.
I've never forgotten that. So
I like that you touched on body language and our communication that maybe we're not even aware that we're giving out, but speaks volumes and speaks loudly to people. I think that's such an important trait for leaders.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, let's see. There's three ways to communicate, right? There's the word you use that's supposed to be 7% of how you communicate. Then there's the paralingual, which is everything you say minus the words. So like your voice, your enunciation, all that kind of stuff, that's supposed to be 38%. And then
Mhm.
body language is supposed to be the 55% that makes up the rest of how we communicate.
It just is.
And
And until you
that'll
do podcasts and watch yourself regularly, you don't know those things you say.
That's true. Oh boy, isn't that true?
and seeing how people engage, whether if they're sitting like this or if they're leaning forward, that'll tell you a lot. It's great that I think you mentioned some of the other aspects of that, Mike, that are nonverbal. Again, I'll throw out a quote. I think it's a Maya Angelou quote, where people will forget what you said, people forget said and did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And so
Yeah.
if you convey that, that's even part of that communication. You're communicating that passion, you're communicating that interest.
Yep. Yeah, that is some people are really gifted with that. They can even give you negative information and make you feel good while they're giving you negative information.
Yeah, and I think it's something that no matter where you're at in your journey, everybody can always benefit from learning a little bit better, or learning a little bit more and getting a little bit better at that skill.
Yeah, that's right. So you've got a bullet list of ways to improve communication. You've got listen actively and attentively, be clear and concise when communicating expectations. That's really important. Show respect. I had a boss tell me that you want to make sure when people are talking to you, that if you're their senior person, that you're not like typing away or something while they're talking to you. You really need to give them your full attention and let them say what they're express what they're saying to you.
Yeah, squaring up to face the person so
Yeah.
that they know you're actively engaged is important.
Yeah.
In my group, we were just talking about advice from another leader that they stick to, that when they see somebody, even if they had just seen them an hour before or a day before, that you treat them like you haven't seen them in the last 10 years. You're just excited to see them. You're exuberant. You give them that, I am all about you right now moment. And that has been transformative in her career. I thought that was fabulous advice.
Oh yeah, that is great advice.
Yeah, that is great advice. I've never heard that before. That is great advice. Yeah. I'll have to start doing that. Mom, I haven't seen you in so long.
In 10 minutes.
Since I was in the other part of the house. Yeah. That's great. All right. Then you have give regular feedback, assign responsibilities effectively, and be assertive when necessary. I'll tell you as a trainer, I get confronted with this. Sometimes I'll have a class full of people and I'll have a particular student who will state their opinion like it's fact, and what they're bringing to the class is wrong. It's actually a bad practice. And I'm faced with being the one responsible for everybody learning in the class. I have to confront that in the class, and it takes careful skill. You have to kind of tell somebody that while that may have worked for them in one instance or another, that's actually not how the framework works, or how the best practice is supposed to happen, or something like that. And it's been tough dealing with this, but you have to. It's kind of part of the role of being the leader, is sometimes you have to be assertive when necessary.
And I gotta give you a lot of credit, Mike. I think that happened. I think that happened a few times while my company was going through your training, that there were opinions that were presented in which they may not have been the best course of action. And I think you did a great job of acknowledging what the person was saying, and then giving the constructive feedback about, yeah, well, I think you're right on this, but I think actually it may be a little bit more of like this type of thing. So it wasn't, the way you confronted it, it wasn't aggressive, and it wasn't making the person feel like they were wrong. It was agreeing with the parts that made sense and then correcting the parts that maybe weren't.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. I didn't even notice that. But thanks. I must have done that then just naturally.
Yeah. It sounds like you're getting good at it because it's just coming natural.
Yeah. Okay, so the next topic we have is decision making, which is important for leaders. And it says here, you got decision making is an essential aptitude for those in managerial positions. It involves making difficult choices quickly while considering all factors before arriving at a conclusion. All right. Yeah, decision making.
Oh man, this is one of the things that I think a lot of leaders struggle with, because they don't want to be seen as the bad guy. And I think sometimes you're going to have to make difficult decisions if you're the person in charge. And at least what I have found to be the most helpful, at least in the context of kind of a work environment. And I understand you can't do this in every type of environment. If you're on the battlefield or something, let's say, sometimes you just have to make a decision, and you can't consult with the rest of the privates to get their feedback. But at least in a workplace setting, if it's possible, I always think it's beneficial to get the team together, or whoever the group of folks that you're working with together, and let them know the direction that you're thinking about leading the team, and then get feedback on what their thoughts are. They may agree with you, they may not. I think it's important that everybody feels like they've been heard, because if they do, it seems like they're much more apt to, even if they disagree with you, to follow your lead, because they feel like their concerns have been addressed. And it's not just, well, this person's just telling us what to do in a dictatorial way. It's, they want us to do this. I've expressed my concern about it. It's been discussed, and we're still going this direction. Okay, I can understand maybe what their perspective was in doing it.
Yeah, certainly involvement is huge. And I've learned that there's some decisions that you need to make with the team, and there are some decisions that are not for the team to be made. And as a leader, you have to kind of learn the difference.
Yeah, and a lot of that will depend on the context that you're in, the role that you're in. Obviously, a CEO of a Fortune 500 company generally isn't going to talk to the tens of thousands, or sometimes hundreds of thousands of people they have below them. But it could be even just getting the board of directors or the VPs together. Hey, what do you guys think about this? Give me your feedback. And so that group that you're directly, kind of involved with.
Yep, definitely.
That's so interconnected with the communication aspect there. To be a good decision maker, you have to, and how you structure your organization to facilitate that information. So the frontline workers that are, maybe sometimes 10 layers away from that CEO making that decision, that he can still hear those perspectives and make the right decision. That has so much to do with the structure of that organization, I think.
Yeah. And like I said, it's like baking the cake. Forget one of those ingredients. Oh man, it's going to be more.
Yep. Absolutely. It's beautiful how you've done that.
You've got a bullet list here. Let's see, encourage data-driven analysis. Yeah, that's really important. Foster open communication. We talked about that. Focus on building consensus. Yep. Delegate responsibility appropriately, and identify potential risks up front. Yeah, boy, that is important to identify risks as soon as you can.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I tried to lay out the book in that structure. And you'll notice, I think you held it up a couple of times. You'll notice it's not terribly long. I try to condense all the information down to what the important things were, without throwing too much in there, because a lot of times, at least for me, I don't want to read War and Peace. I want to read something that's going to give me the information without having to spend, I don't know, I'm going to be reading this book for 3 months. No, I mean, this is something you can knock out in a couple of days.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it took me 2 evenings. It took 2 evenings to read this book. Yeah. So yeah, that's good.
You've made it very accessible.
Yep. Yeah, and like you said, a couple of things in there in each chapter that you can practically apply to your leadership practice, and then also some examples from history of how it's been used in the past. So yeah, thank you for touching on that, Mike.
Yeah, that's what I engaged with the most. I love to hear those stories, and I love to see how other leaders have approached, situations that are difficult for me or that I'm challenged with, and be inspired by that. So that's a very enjoyable part of the book.
Oh, thanks, Nikki.
So next you've got emotional intelligence, and you got here, emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage one's emotions and those of others. And then you kind of break it down into self-awareness and motivating teams and individuals. And then, yeah, kind of, as Nikki said, what you talked about before, communication, body language, that kind of stuff, and trust and collaboration, recognizing people for their potential talent, and helping them build decision-making abilities. So
yeah, and a lot of that I would say ties in with that communication part, especially. Um, you can communicate with anybody, but if you're not doing it in the right way, that message is going to be lost. So having that self-awareness and emotional intelligence to know if it's the right time to have maybe a difficult conversation with somebody, or in the right way to approach a personality. That's again another kind of key ingredient that goes along with being a good leader, I think.
can I tell you a story that's
Oh man,
that
shoot.
pertains to this? I was a middle manager, and I was trying to impress the big boss, and I was telling him that I had worked a deal where I had two consulting companies and we needed to fill a contract position, and I invited them both into my office at the same time in the same day, and I put them both in two chairs right next to each other. These are competing companies. And I told them both, I'm looking for the best price I can get. You know, I want somebody that's got these credentials, and I'm looking for the best bill rate I can get. And then I dismissed them to go find this open rec for me. And I was telling the CEO I'd done this, kind of like, hey, look at this cool move I just did. And he gave me a really funny look. And he said, all right, let me know how it goes. And he walks out of my office. And what happened was I was presented with a candidate that had a really excellent bill rate. And so I hired him, and he spent 5 months doing nothing for us. And finally, by the time we dismissed him, because some of our senior developers were freed up, that we had time now to put them on the problem we hired him to solve, he was not able to solve. In 3 days, one of our senior developers solved the problem. 3 days. And so when the dust settled, I had a really great relationship with the CEO. I was telling him the whole story. Yeah, it just didn't work out for us. 5 months we paid this guy, and he couldn't do this. And we offered assistance. We could tell he was struggling, and we tried to like help him, and he just was all closed. No, I'm really just trying to figure this out. Anyway, kind of the conclusion of it all was, I guess you really get what you pay for. And the CEO looked the same guy that gave me that confused look. Suddenly he gave me a non-confused look, a very conclusive look. And he says, well, Mike, I hope you learned something from all this. And then he got up and walked out of my office. So what I marveled about was that he had the foresight not to correct me. He was like, oh, you pulled this? Okay, let's see where it goes, So it didn't go well. And he could have corrected me right then, but I probably would not have really believed him and learned a lesson that I needed to learn. And so he was more interested in building me as a leader than he was in, scolding me or something. And I have a lot of respect for him for that. And so anyway, that was an example, I think, of good emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. Actually, that's something that I talk about a little bit later in the book in one of my chapters. I can't remember off the top of my head which one, but it does discuss about celebrating failures, because that's how people learn. That's how people, grow. And I'm sure if he hadn't done that, that may have been something that, oh yeah, this will work. This will work.
Yeah, I probably would not have believed. I mean, he's a good guy and all, but I probably would not have really believed him. And then later, I probably would have done the same thing again somewhere, And he was interested in me just learning about it, and
That's great. He sounds like a pretty good person to have had the opportunity to work for.
Yeah, he was a great leader to work for. He was. All right. So you've got a bullet list here. Listen to others, increase your own self-awareness. Boy, that is so important. Self-awareness and emotional intelligence really go hand in hand.
Oh, yeah.
Here's something I learned. I had a student in class explain this to me, and it changed my life. They said that some people with emotional intelligence, part of emotional intelligence is being able to read a room, like being sort of empathetic and being an empath, being able to kind of read all of the emotions going on in the room. Some people are natural at this, and some people are quite clumsy at it and not really gifted. But if you're a natural at being an empath and sort of reading a room, that can be good. But if you read the characteristics of somebody who's a natural empath, and then you read the characteristics of somebody who's codependent, which is not good, it's the same list. And so there's really a little more to it. If you're an empath, you got to have good self-awareness. Otherwise, you get taken advantage of. And that's what a codependent person is, somebody who's being taken advantage of because their whole role in life is to make everybody else happy around them. And that, as you grow into adulthood, that becomes very dysfunctional. And so, that self-awareness is real key to good, healthy person. You've got good communication skills, ask for feedback, show vulnerability, and foster relationships. And any comments about any of those topics?
No, I think again, they're all pieces of the puzzle that when employed in the right way, enhance your ability to relate to people. And typically, in a leadership role, you're going to be leading other people. So having that team cohesion and having those people respect you for being able to be open and vulnerable, I think builds a stronger dynamic within the team.
Okay. So James, this has been really fun going through. We've gone through half of your book, and I think we're going to have to do a third part of this. Nikki, what do you think?
I think that'd be a great idea. I'd love to talk more about it.
Okay, that sounds great. James, is that okay with you if we do a part 3 and kind of go through the second half of your book?
Yeah, that sounds great. I always love talking with you guys.
Okay, awesome.
We
Very
love having
good.
you.
Very good. Well, we're out of time for today, but yeah, join us next week. We'll do part 3 to James Pizzola's book, and we'll see you then. This is Mike Berry. I'm a tech trainer. I train like project management and software testing, and a brand new program called Stable that works along with the Agile mindset to provide operational excellence to companies. And Nikki, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, with Paradox Circle Consulting, we work with people who want to take their leadership to the next level, to figure out what it is that's holding them back, make themselves the obvious choice for the next promotion. And we love working with aspiring leaders, executive leaders, everything along that. So we'd love to help people to implement a lot of the concepts in this book into their daily practice and just kick up their performance.
Very good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Join us next week for part 3 of James Pizzola's book. And we'll see you then. And Nikki, I think that's a wrap.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.